EDC meeting and workshop to order. Let it be known, I guess all we're missing is
Drew and Tanya.
Okay, so let that be in there. Our normal process is if you would, for whatever items and actions that you're concerned with, it's going to take some quiet time and pontificate whichever way you want to on it. Okay, that's our invocation, but a little quiet time. All right, if you would, let's stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Do we have any public comments? None? Okay. So what we're going to do is move into the workshop. I think Mayor and I had a couple of discussions, and there were some questions and concerns that the EDC board has had. We've had a different year. I'll put it that way. So kind of wanted to get this workshop together, both to get some direction, and to get some feedback from what I think we're doing. I'll let the rest of them speak for themselves. So the first one was strictly the future allocations and the usage of local sales tax revenue. Because we know that there's some issues that are out there. Originally the documentation was out there when the city was put together. This is just history. Out of the 1% was going to the city, 1% decision was made to take a half of that and do a property tax reduction. 25% would go to the 04A board, or the 04B board, and the 4A board. Okay, so we move forward. I think what is it, in 2023, you took the property tax reduction and moved that in just into the city coffers. Okay, so that left 25% with the 4A and 25% with at the same point in time that we did that into what was street maintenance. Okay, which was allowed by Texas law at the time. The issue that we've got now, and what I'd ask for some clarification from ex officio member before, is where is council in the negotiation with the ESD number 5? Okay, because that part of it is interesting. Only in the sense is that if we lose that, okay, for those things that we haven't annexed by the time the agreement is done, okay, then we will never get sales tax out of that, and that's currently what HUDO's going through right now. If we do at least get it set up so that we've got, share the same tax we've got now for the expansions that are going in the area, then what that would really turn out to be is that we would receive 1/8%. So the commentary that I think we were trying to get to is that we're slowly being squeezed out of money to do much development from an EDC point of view, okay? So part of it is that we'll accept our fate, whatever that is, but we kind of wanted a statement from council and the mayor is, where are you going, okay? What is the plan for the EDC? Patrick and I had a talk before. One of them was go out there and annex every piece of land you can get before that interlocal agreement goes south, and that minimizes some of the impact, especially around the I-35 corridor where we could truly put in commercial, residential, and reap sales tax revenue that comes out of it. Because once we pass that, if we can't negotiate continuing that going on and only where that's at, then what's the right term for that? We're pretty well screwed, because that means is that, to grow it, it's going to be kind of like you as the city council and as the mayor are going to have to invest in things that all you'll get back is property tax. You know, and, you know, looking at your budget, your sales tax revenue is about 1.8 times what your property tax revenue is, so property taxes suck. They just don't generate a lot of income to do some things that are out there, so, having brought that up,
Where are we with the Walmart
Well-
negotiation, right?
well, yeah, I'm not necessarily concerned about Walmart, I'm concerned about the whole philosophical element of, you know, did you plan on doing a land grab before the interlocal agreement goes south, you know, or do we just have to accept the fact is that for whatever we've got in the city limits right now, that's gonna be the only sales tax dollars that we're ever gonna be able to receive, you know? So I don't know.
Does the land grab really mean anything, because there was two different interpretations of the deal? So I think the city's interpretation was they've got to renegotiate the fire, whatever's going on. Our interpretation was if you annex it before a deal, then it's not a part of the deal.
Well, I'm going with our legal counsel's view on that one, which, by the way, was the originators of that interlocal agreement. You know, that when we entered into that agreement, that was what was there, is anything that was annexed before the end of that agreement, okay, was the city's, okay? If it didn't have commercial on it already. Okay, because the original agreement was set this way. The reason that it was even approved was because of the quarries. And whoever was the idiot mayor at the time said, well, we're never gonna annex a quarry anyway, so what the hell does that idiot care?
So that is our interpretation of the agreement. That is not their interpretation.
That is not the interpretation by our attorney.
So if we go with theirs, we're already screwed. It's too late, too bad. If we, so to me, the resolve needs to be, what are we gonna do with that? Are we just gonna accept it as it is and let it be, or figure out
Fight
what
it.
the verbiage is?
I mean, I think from the city's perspective, we would like to explore all of the options, right? We are currently, we've had some talks about just the Walmart tract, and then contributing to the rebate the city is giving this back to Walmart, over X amount of years. I think it's $1.95 million we're rebating back to them. The ESD is, in our initial talk, going to contribute a portion of it, essentially the same amount as the city would. Other than that, we have not had any talks about any sort of increased share on the city side of the sales tax.
There's been brief discussion about, if the agreement were to be renegotiated, what would the percentages look like? Simply because we have to do rebates.
And
Just simple discussion, and they were open-minded to consideration.
correct, and I think on our side, I don't wanna see us take all the money from the fire department and leave them, underfunded. But it would help the negotiations on every future tract of land, going forward, if we were technically allowed to have all of it, because right now, the way it sits is they have all the leverage once the current contract expires. If you go on our attorney's interpretation. So, and I'm looking past 2029 when that agreement expires. What would be the implications of not having an agreement, and they don't have to split anything with us going forward? So I think it's a whole group discussion on what direction we want to go as a city, because the sales tax is the only money that y'all do get in. So y'all should have a say on what we do. I don't know.
But and I think on our end, we've had big discussion about this, okay, is that if we don't at least get some portion of that back, then as an EDC, we're pretty much not gonna be able to help the city do growth in those economic development areas that we're there. Now, we already know that we can do deep projects because this previous idiot mayor actually got that signed through council, so we can do big projects. But if we don't have any money coming in, it's kind of like, Yeah, we have the legal right to do it, we don't have the monetary portion of it to come in place, so we've got two legal opinions, okay, that differentiate, what's going out there. Whichever way it goes, I mean, if you build residential, the city's gonna get property taxes out of that, but again, that's inconsequential compared to what you can get with sales tax revenue. The ESD is always gonna get their 1/10 of 1% of the property taxes in a much bigger area than the city's going to have in there, so there's, as you grow, you're already contributing to them at whatever that 1/10 of 1% of the property tax increase is gonna be by residential growth in the area, by annexation, whatever else, so. I guess ours, and I'm only gonna speak for myself, would be is that I would like to see the negotiations brought up, whatever percentage, if we're down to the choice between 0 and an 1/8, I would take whatever the hell we can get, because 0 is not going to bode well for us being able to do the things that council and you, as mayor, would want us to do to promote opportunities within the city of Gerald.
Larry, this may sound like a dumb question, but what does the EDC do with their money? I've not really ever seen what y'all do with your money, so that's.
We hoard it, we have about
You save
I'm
a
a hoarder.
lot.
I save a lot of money so we can do things.
But what can you do with your money, or what have you been doing with your money?
Well, we haven't done anything over the last year because we haven't been able to come to agreements as to, let's just say we've had some internal
Sure.
strife with us. So, a lot of them will trust in there. We can do B projects, so we can actually build things within the city that don't necessarily totally are associated with commercial and or retail growth.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't build a water plant, but we could certainly put in a water line. Because if we take a look at it from commercial retail, they're not a good water customer because all they need is fire flow. Okay, so could we upgrade a line, or could we actually create a line, move it over there and create fire flow for a development that would be a commercial development so that they could now afford the act, and the answer is yes, we could do that. Could we go in and support? Yep.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Can I jump in?
Of course you can.
All right. So just the ordinance that was passed in 2020 that authorizes the type A to do type B projects.
Right.
So, it's chapter 504 local government code, which deals with type A corporations. So there's two criteria you gotta meet in order to authorize your type A to do type B projects, right? Number one, you gotta have a population of 7,500 or less, which we meet that one. The other one is you must have authorized the creation of a type B corporation. I think the issue is that in 2009, you eliminated your type B tax. So you don't have a type B corporation. So I'm not sure that the city hits that second
I have a question
criteria.
around elimination. Was it eliminated or reallocated?
I mean, the ordinance.
'Cause I was often wondering.
It says elimination of the 4B economic development sales tax.
So if it were ever to go back to ballot, as it did before,
Mhm.
could it be eliminated in the structure that it is now and then readverted back to the 4B?
Yes, you could do a joint proposition, saying, we're gonna basically do the reverse. You're gonna eliminate the type B and, eliminate the A and go to a type B. And so at that point, the type A money would go to the city and the city could reallocate that to the type B. Does that make sense?
And what type of things what type of projects go under type B versus type A?
So,
The answer is practically anything.
Type A is basically primary jobs. You're doing manufacturing, those type of things. And type B can do community projects, we can do parks, we can do retail, it just expands it out. And so to go back to your question before, what can we do? So when you all are doing economic development deals, you wanna do an incentive, right? Maybe you don't. we can't. You can come to the B and say, we need X, Y, and Z to get this deal done.
Mhm.
That's where your B Corp can come in to help you all, along with infrastructure and.
Okay.
But a type B, we've had many people come to us. and,
Yeah.
We're doing retail, well, we don't really meet that criteria, we can't spend that money to help expand. So business retention and expansion is another thing that we could do.
So we have two primary projects that are in right now. One of them is the Levada incentive that's out there,
Yeah.
for which we have got under the hook for $500,000, okay, which is fine. And then the other one is that we were able to support, training, okay, for workforces within the Gerald area through the, Gerald Community Library Resource Center contract with them for supplying resources, but it has to be something that we can tie to something else. You can't just donate money, so I think that was the one.
I think the overarching theme is, type A is limited to what they can do, but type B can do everything type A can do, plus more, so why not do the type B?
So we'd actually asked Tyler, and had it brought forward, he has the verbiage in the document, this is our legal counsel, that would say, here's what you would have to do. It can't be done until November, okay, because it's gotta be done in election. But if the decision is made is that you wanna convert us to a B, okay, then the answer is that Tyler's got the verbiage that you would have to put on the ballot to be able to convert us into that part, which is, for me, is getting ahead of the horse. We don't have any money, it doesn't make any difference what the hell we are.
Back to the sales tax.
That's kind of where it's in here. If we don't start doing something to increase the amount of commercial and or retail business in the areas that we do own today, okay? And if we don't take a look at what the potential revenues are for the city too, because you've got 0.75% of, or 1.5%, yeah. That's basically what you got, 1.5% of the sales tax wrapped up in yours. If it grows at 0, then that means you're growing at 0 too. So it's not just for the benefit of the EDC group, okay, whether we turn out to be an A or a B. It's also big time money for the city growth because of.
The city only has two major sources of revenue, right? It's property tax and sales tax. And if you use your sales tax, what do you have to do? Raise your profits.
Yeah.
So your citizens are gonna get that. So, to me, this is just me, I think we need to figure out the verbiage on that contract before it expires and it's gone and go from there. That's the horse I've been beating.
Well, I think you want an agreement in place. I think an agreement is better than no agreement, because with no agreement, you could end up, this is it, right? So at least now, it's half and half split. Can I get clarification on, because I wasn't aware it had been changed since 2009. I thought the city was getting 1%.
No,
half.
in 2003, the city put it on the ballot too. If you look at the proportions in there, reading the agreement, 0.5% went for property tax reduction. So the way that was done is that we did the budget that was out there, then we took whatever that number was, reduced everything, and then set property taxes after that was in there. So in 2003, the city went through and said, we're gonna take that 0.5% and just move it into the general fund.
Okay, so city's getting 1.5,
Yes,
and then a quarter is going to roads and a quarter to type A?
yes.
Okay,
So that's where we stand today.
gotcha.
So from our viewpoint, sitting here today, looking forward, okay, going with what we've got and going where should we drive to do this economic expansion that's in here? Our problem is that if we expand out of whatever is the current city limits right now, there's no payback. Okay, it's just kind of like me planting grass out of my pasture. I just get to throw $20 bills up in the air and watch the wind blow them away. You know, it doesn't work.
I have a question. What, say we take this to a judge and how is this actually supposed to be allocated by this agreement? What happens to the current businesses that are being split between the ESD and the city of Gerald? Like we were supposed to be owed the entire 2%, like, does that affect that at all?
Like back taxes?
Right, that's like new businesses that were essentially built and started splitting that sales tax, if we technically owed all of it because it's a brand new business, that we annexed we annexed the property, business built, we were owed the full 2%, but the fire department's already got that out money, I assume allocated,
Yeah, I mean,
spending it, so.
certainly ask the comptroller
Yeah.
to, for the back taxes, whether they would grant that relief or not. I wouldn't count on it. It would
I
probably,
wouldn't either.
it would probably
I wouldn't
be
even ask
from this
for it.
date going
I wouldn't
forward,
even ask
this
for
is
it,
how
yeah.
we're gonna split it.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think it's in the best interest of the city to try to at least renegotiate with the ESD. And then if you can't, then you can explore other alternatives. But, I mean, other cities, Liberty Hill just did it, Hutto's in the middle of doing it, I think.
They're fighting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
So the next question is, what kind of percentage do y'all think would be fair when it comes to renegotiating that split? Do y'all think-
I can tell you, is that for the two people that were involved in the original interlocal agreement, we spent hours trying to figure out, because we were balancing it out with, well, the city's raising the value of the property by doing annexing and creating homes and putting new neighborhoods in, and the ESD gets their share from the state of Texas, whatever it may be, that automatically goes to them, and they have no investment in that, okay? We took a look at the rest of it and went, well, the lifeblood of going into a city to pay for all of the things that are necessary for growth, which is, as you well know, if you're gonna go out and put some wells in, you're gonna put some water lines in, you're gonna put some sewer lines in, you're gonna create a wastewater treatment plant, you're gonna put some elevated storage tanks in, you're gonna go out and do all of the other things that need to go, and you're gonna put fire hydrants in there so our ESD can look good, you know, in front of the pictures by putting out a fire for, after you've already invested 98% of the cash money to get the water to the fire hydrant. There's a part of me that's cynically in dealing with the then president of the ESD that said, we need to understand who's investing the money. And so the way that it currently was set up is that we said that that's probably as fair as it can possibly get, okay? If there is a commercial property that's in the ESD's boundary, but outside the city limits, and you go out and annex that land, it says, okay, we're not gonna take all of it away from you. You get a half and we get a half, because we're having to do more infrastructure to get to you. Because the ESD is not going to build fire flow lines, and it's not gonna put in elevated storage tanks, and it's not gonna drill any wells and do the rest of it. So the negotiation that was sitting around there was simply one of, what did the two of you want to do, okay? If the ESD board wants to grow, you know, and participate in the growth of the Gerald area, whatever that turns out to be, you know, then it's gotta be a shared resource with the cost of putting those infrastructure in, because the ESD does not have the legal capability or the financial wherewithal to go take the long-term debt instruments, you know, to do the things that would be necessary to allow a community to grow. That was my spin. That was the long discussions that we had prior to the first interlocal, or the current interlocal agreement being signed. Okay, so kind of like I said in the discussion, it was originally set up so that the revenue could come in off the ports, which, by the way, is quite a bit of money. Okay, and the reasoning on the side, whatever the negotiating side of the city is, we were never going to go out and annex a quarry anyway. Why would we do something like that? It just was.
This is a prime example to me why every decision that you make today is gonna affect somebody 10 years, 15 years.
Yeah.
So negotiating is right today is what you want to do, or whatever that is. I know it's a 60-40 split. That's what the contract's at today. I don't know what normal.
well, I know that Hutto was asking for, to get all of the sales tax from like two specific
Bigger,
areas.
yes.
So, I mean, you could.
But they're trying to
expect
repay $400 million in debt too, for that sales tax revenue, which is different, which is the alternative that you're staring at. Okay, if you can go do a development, put water, sewer, road, whatever the heck else is out there. But when you turn around and look at the payback out of it, okay, you know, I'm talking about commercial, you got nothing. okay? Effectively, without negotiating something, the city doesn't get anything, you don't get your 1.5%, we don't get our 0.25%, and we don't get the 0.25% going to the street maintenance fund that's out there. And so that was kind of part of going back to negotiation down to zero is really, that's a hard pill to swallow.
I mean, you can, keep in mind, you can remove territory from an ESD, but you have to be able to provide the same level of service that they are providing. So you have to ask yourself, what services are they providing that the city cannot at this point? So if the city were able to provide that service in the future, then you certainly have more leverage to renegotiate.
Which, by the way, was a topic that we had talked about, the visuals in 20 years. Gerald would just absorb ESD number 5, and it would become the Gerald Fire Department, and there would be, at that point in time, there would be no need for a negotiation of an interlocal agreement that was in there,
20 years can make a lot of difference. So,
Well, as you said,
since today, here built the 6th or 7th fire station, they just built a $40 million administrative building, they're taking out bills to do all of that. So if Hutto wanted, I'm using that as an example, because that's what I know. The city would have to take on all that debt.
absolutely.
So if that was something the city wanted to do, you want to do it earlier rather than.
We're currently
But I don't know.
exploring.
Yeah. And that would be one, that was a discussable one many years ago when we first brought it up, as a city, did we want to go out there and buy part of it? And so it was a question of just trade, like all of us. I've got X amount of money, I've got X amount of cash flow, okay, what do I want to spend it on, okay? Long term, where's it gonna keep me? As far as continuation of growth, providing services, which ones are critical that cities need to do, which ones of them are feel good, whichever ones you got out there. So I don't envy it. My commentary is strictly historical commentary. Where was that? We were a much smaller city back then, So I guess without anything else in there, knowing, part of it's out there, the question would be would it be council and mayor's wish that we give you the verbiage that you would then consider as a city council action to convert us to a type B? Which I think from our end, especially from Tim's side, that would be the preferable thing to do. It gives us more flexibility to be able to do things for you, regardless of how much money we've got, okay? If we were a B, then we could actually do things for small businesses here that have nothing to do with jobs or the things that the type A corporations would have done.
But we can also do that. That's the great thing about the B, is it can still do what type A is. So what our ask is can we send you that language?
No, I understand that, and I was so focused on the percentage.
Yeah.
Because it is y'all's attorney who is, stating that the current agreement, we get the entire 2%. Do y'all have an opinion? Y'all could task him to,
Send your proposal.
what would you do? What would be your steps to, I know you said you want to renegotiate, but if they're like, nope, we're not doing anything with renegotiating, what would be your steps to?
Well, at this point, I will say you're getting into contemplated litigation, so you could go into executive session if you want to.
That is up to y'all. I don't know if y'all want to get that deep into it, but it is y'all's attorney. Do y'all want to task him to explore?
Well, we can do that. From our, and I'm not trying to get on this, we're trying to get a sense of where does council and where do you, Mayor, want us to go? Okay, we've offered these up continuously for the last 4 or 5 months, okay? Is where do you want us to go and what do you want us to do? Tyler's been very good at going, well, if you do this, it's gonna cost you this much, or if you do this, it's going to go in there. But we've never, I don't think we've sat down, other than the verbiage for converting us to a B, I don't think we've actually sat down and put a plan together for the interlocal agreement.
Well, yeah, we did discuss it in executive session, but you just remember, it is gonna be the city of Gerald versus
Right.
whoever if you do litigation,
We can't fight
so.
the contract, we don't have the contract, so we just had him to read it because it affects us, so we wanted to say, hey, what do y'all see in this, and we got an opinion.
So,
He
So it's
interpreted
back on your
the
side.
opposite of this board, so what did ours say, that we get what?
50-50.
The way it's currently being interpreted by the comptroller's office.
yeah, I mean, you put two lawyers in a room together, they're gonna find something to disagree about, right? But, yeah,
Well, there's a specific word.
Do you have a copy of it?
yes, I do.
There's specific verbiage that he and I.
It really comes down to the definition of an allocated business.
Allocated, that's what
And did you say your firm was one of the ones that wrote the original agreement?
No, the original agreement was with the current city attorney, Art Rodriguez, who, wherever Art's status is, I'm sure he's the overhaul head. So Art was the one that originally approved the agreement for the city with the ESD number 5, that was written between the then head of the ESD board and the mayor, which was approved by council. Okay, and that's the one that you see today, which is inside the city limits, it all goes to the city. If there's a business operating outside the city limits and the city annexes it later, you split it 50-50. And for all those businesses that exist outside of the city limits, and there's a commercial venture that collects sales tax, all of that goes to the ESD. Okay. So again, our limitation was in the vision at that point in time is that the ESD wanted to collect sales taxes from the quarries, which were in the ESD's boundary, but way outside of the city's city limits. Okay.
I think what Larry is saying is that if a court determines a contract is ambiguous, at that point, then the parties are allowed to introduce extrinsic evidence as to the party's intent when they entered into that agreement. So essentially, you could call Larry as a witness or the ESD president who signed the agreement and say, ask them, what was your intent when you entered into this agreement? Was it for the ESD to get sales tax from every single business annexed by the city for the next 100 years, or was it just for the quarries?
Or something in between.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, having for your part, that's the part that we came up with, is that Charles and my original intent was, we understood that might be a commercial venture that would go into the ESD's territory, but external to the city limits, but the city was continuously growing, we annexed it, we weren't going to go, okay, ESD, you don't get anything at all, but we would get at least enough money to help pay for the infrastructure that caused the city limits to grow, to overtake whatever that commercial retail environment is. And this has nothing to do, by the way, with residential. That's the city's, nobody can touch that.
So that's a big loser anyway.
It is, I mean, if anybody thinks by putting a bunch of homes in, you're gonna get successful, it's, I'm sure Patrick recognizes that by now, you know. Property taxes don't pay for much.
So essentially, I think it comes down to what is an allocated business. So the agreement says any business who has not collected sales and use taxes within the city prior to annexation. So what I'm saying is to qualify as an allocated business, it must have existed before annexation and the city didn't collect sales tax. So Walmart, for example, is not, right now it's just land, right? It's not an existing business. So my argument would be that if we annex that land before there's a business there, then the city should get that sales tax.
No allocated business on it.
Right.
So that allocated is the word that's.
Yeah, and it's certainly up for interpretation. I mean, the contract isn't super clear on that, so if we were to renegotiate, I would certainly try to make that more clear. And I don't know what a judge or a jury would, how they would interpret that, but that's just my interpretation.
Question.
Yes, sir.
For the established business, is it
purchase of the land by Walmart creates a business, or there had to be a physical structure, or to the percentage of a physical structure. Or it had to be a full operation, which is, you have clientele.
That's the thing, the agreement doesn't say, that's
Yeah,
what
the word allocated.
that's what we're
Walmart
arguing
could
about.
own the land and turn around and say, we're gonna get into the home business and build homes, it's not a business, so it's not an allocated business until
Generating
they're
Generating sales tax, yes.
Well, there was a sidebar that went into that one. The idea was that if we were gonna bring a commercial property into the city, then we were going to be in some form of negotiation for putting water, wastewater, other infrastructure out there, either by a 380 agreement or by some other mechanism that would be there to allow that business to exist, okay? There would be no other reason for the city to negotiate bringing those infrastructure pieces online unless they were going to get sales tax out of it, because property taxes off of Walmart are just, it doesn't pay for much.
Where are we in the negotiations? I know you said they were open, but what's the next step in that negotiation?
They're prepared for us to meet, when we're ready, but I think a lot of this too was by interpretation. I knew that, this board had, onboarded an attorney for his interpretation of the document, so that we could use that as like a.
And are they open to that interpretation? Has that been presented to them?
Not at this time, no.
It hasn't been presented, or they're not open to
No,
that?
it has not been presented. This interpretation has not been presented.
I know there was an ESD board member present when we initially discussed this at an EDC meeting, so I know she said she disagreed with my interpretation. I'm sure she shared that with the ESD board, so they may or may not be aware of that.
But they are open to discussion.
When do we plan on meeting with them?
Here in the near future.
Okay. Well, I appreciate Doug, and especially Tyler Parks out there, not getting on this. I just want, you go ahead, Doug.
Just keep in mind, I mean, if you go to litigation, the judge is gonna make you mediate anyways, and then you're gonna be sitting down to negotiate.
Right.
So you might as well just start with the negotiation. Same thing if you're gonna remove territory from an ESD. If the parties disagree on the annexation, then you have to go to binding arbitration anyways. So, better to just sit down, figure this out, amicably if possible.
I think in our end of the workshop, this is an item out there, we're just trying to let you understand what our very deep concerns are in our ability to do anything for the city if this interlocal agreement does not get negotiated into some level of positive agreement. And we still have a lot of territory that we can do commercial growth in, okay? That's a whole nother discussion about infrastructure and water lines and wastewater lines and the rest of it. But looking out there at the 10-year mark or the 15-year mark of where you want to go in there, once we run out the current boundaries that are in there, we're all pretty well hosed. Okay. Laura, you good with all of this?
Okay, so I'm reading this as, the combined area is the area that it sits in the ESD and is in ours, correct?
Anything that we would annex.
Right, okay. And so this says then that, any business who has not collected sales and use taxes in the city of Gerald, Texas prior to annexation into the corporate limits of the city and county or immediately preceding into the corporate city and limits, that you have to share. We're sharing that, right? So if we're bringing in new.
So the intent, Laura, was if it's already a viable business and it's collecting sales
Yeah.
tax and it's being, and we would
Yeah.
annex that land, then we would split it.
Right, okay, but we're bringing in new business, so new business that you're bringing in,
If
is
we
it
don't
still the
split
same
it,
way?
it all goes to the city. If it was not an allocated business at the time we annexed
Okay,
it,
so that's what he's saying, right now it's just a piece of land.
It's just a
We
piece of
annexed
land.
the land, so y'all don't get anything out of the land, and then we put a new business on it,
It's a city. So because you've adopted, there's two things that got adopted there. One of them is that you committed to putting infrastructure in place for this viable business to grow here. You're making a pretty heavy investment in that one. And the second one is that the outcome that you get from that to help pay for that structure through sales tax revenue and other parts of it says you get it all. Okay, so
and what does our attorney say, that even the new business coming in, we have to share?
Yes.
and that was neither the intent of the two people who
Wrote it,
wrote it. Okay.
so that.
And I will, let me pass this one back. The current city attorney approved Charles and my interpretation of the way we wrote that damn thing.
Oh,
So
great.
that, I'm trying to bite my tongue, but,
Well, I mean, you would just be.
Is that in writing somewhere? Was
Yeah.
well,
to
if
them
Art
that
has
the
it,
current- Okay.
yeah, Art has it, because Art was in the negotiation, because he effectively has been our city attorney since I got on board, well, that was his partner in 2007, so Art was aware of everything. We always went to him for, how is this gonna work out? So he had final approval of the document before we took it to council to get it approved. Don't
Oh,
do it. So, again, I'm somewhat cynical. The city attorney, who's the current city attorney, approved the original interlocal agreement, so
I didn't know we had to go in there and also define new versus land, or, nitpick that, but I see what you're saying, I tend to agree.
But
The way
there are
explained it, I agree with
established
that.
businesses now that we have annexed that were not businesses, and we are splitting, is that, we already have
Correct.
some of those.
Like
So-
Starbucks,
Okay. Most recent ones.
yeah, the car wash, Starbucks.
We split those,
And how far back was the first one that was this example?
I don't know when the interpretation changed from the original intent, so I'm not exactly sure which businesses.
see, mine would have been whatever, ours were, whatever the city limits were at the time that we signed the agreement, that established it. So that was, Patrick and I were having a discussion, I said, man, if I was you, I would just start, anybody that walked in the front door and said, we've got 40 acres to annex and it's voluntary, I would just, 91 days later, you're in, okay, just, but that's just me. Okay, so the intent there was is that if you get it into the city before a business goes on it, okay,
Right.
then it should be the city's, because you're doing all the investment to bring them in there. So I would have argued that Starbucks and the car wash and the rest of it probably should have been all the cities, but that's me. Now, just, my interpretation was anything that goes down the corridors of 535, all the way down to Ronald Reagan, as far as I'm concerned, they're in the city limits, and any commercial business you put in there, that's the city's full board. If in fact, somebody put in a commercial development on Ronald Reagan, let's say whatever that might be, and brought water, and had a septic system, and brought them into business, and the city decides to annex down Ronald Reagan and takes them over, then the idea was, yeah, then you need to split it. Because they've already invested the money to get the business in place, you're not having to do a whole bunch more, so,
If that was the original intent of the document, is there an example of an existing business that would have happened immediately afterwards, where we can show that the history was there by the comptroller's office?
Well, the comptroller, I'm not sure what happened out of it. The only businesses that were in place at the time the document originally been in place were the quarries.
No, so what would have been the first business under this agreement? Because that's where it should have started.
Every business that I was involved with, it was totally into the city, all of it. And is that not correct? Any business that we had up until 2022 or whatever that time frame may be, if it was in the city limits and it got started in the city limits, then we took all of the sales tax for it. If somebody gave up part of it, I don't know what that rationale was.
Yeah, I don't know.
We shouldn't have given up anything that was originally started in,
That would have been through the comptroller's office.
yeah, and
That's what I'm saying, is there any history there that maybe we can use in this argument on how it should have been interpreted?
well, like I said, the two people that wrote it and were trying to enforce it on both ends, okay, were pretty clear as to what the interpretation was. So
And
ours
Charles
was a
Ashley
bit,
was one of the ones that wrote with you, who is on this current board, and
Gary Crowder was also a signature on.
yeah, so he wasn't there. I mean, could have been. Okay, so again, it's like everything else, if you're dealing with money, you know, somebody's gonna start hanging out for their interpretation that's going to be best for their side of it, okay? So I'm gonna go with Tyler's commentary, if you wanna talk to the two people that put it in intent, wrote the document, signed the document, what their intent was, you know, then I'm sure. Because we've already had that discussion with, I think Charles had it, okay, and I had it, okay? Making sure that everybody understood that our interpretation is exactly the way you're reading it right now, okay? If it was existing and we hadn't annexed it, we annexed it, it's a split. If it's out there because we know the ESD boundary is huge, kind of like the school district, it's huge, okay? But if there's a viable business out there, and we're not providing anything, services for it, because we don't get anything for it. So, I know we keep harping on the same thing, but that literally was the intent, okay?
Hard to answer your question, Tanya, without I'm
Yeah.
not aware of the
We'd have to go back.
annexation history since 2021. I mean, we'd have to dive
Yeah.
into that.
I just think it would be a baseline of.
Yeah.
Of something that we can use.
Yeah, we can certainly explore that.
Sure, absolutely. So, all right,
On the part B, that would have to go on the election ballot?
Yes, ma'am.
yes, ma'am, which can't happen until November, so it's not like it's gotta be done.
I've got a general question, would it been beneficial, or would it be beneficial for the EC to be involved in this negotiation?
The ESD.
With ESD?
I don't know that we can. Well, for us to be involved in negotiation for their contract with the ESD.
So, yeah, the interlocal agreement is between the ESD and the city of Gerald. You know, we are merely, a service group, you know.
They cannot legally share with us. So that's my understanding from HUDO anyway. The ESD cannot share with the EDC, they can only
Right.
share with the city. So-
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's up to the city, but I mean, the city could invite whoever they
A
want to those
representative,
negotiations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Okay,
there.
so if you're not, oh, I'm sorry, we were talking about, I thought maybe, you know, we were gonna go over to the ESD and negotiate our own.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
No, not negotiating for, no.
Just be
Certainly, that would be an interpretation of council and the mayor as to who do you want to participate in the discussion, okay? You know, I think both Charles and I have offered ourselves up as sacrificial goats, if that's what it really needs to come down to, but, okay, that's a good question.
One other question on the election.
Mhm.
I'm sure it'll pass, but what happens to that sales tax if it doesn't pass the election?
So,
They nay, right?
Remain an
what'd you say?
A. If it fails, we just remain an A, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would be a joint proposition.
Just don't wanna lose the money.
Yeah.
One money, create another one on the same vote.
I think I addressed that.
Still have it ready.
Yeah.
I had a memo for EDC. It
Yeah.
was-
It's okay.
Yeah, essentially, if it didn't pass, we would still have the type A.
Yeah. So, certainly that would be something that council and the mayor would have to discuss, you know, as you move forward in moving that into. I think our end of it, if I'm not wrong, we would want to be a big, right?
Correct.
Okay, so,
And what are the negatives of the B? I mean, why aren't we already that?
because we got in on the very first, we developed the A and the B boards when the city first got involved. So the city's only 25 years old, okay? Came up in 2001. First thing that happened even prior to me, they went out there and wanted to get the entire 2% of the sales tax, okay? So they created an A and a B. When I first got on council, I actually served as the council representative on the B board, okay? There are lots of emotions and human crap that get involved in, like a lot of other things. And so a decision was made to move part of the money up. You gotta remember, when we first started as a city, we couldn't afford, I mean, our first yearly budget was, when I was there in 2007, was $535,000 was the yearly budget for the city of Gerald, including police force and everything else, so. You've come a long ways, okay? But the intent was to get that sales tax, okay, and, God damn, we were getting excited when we would get $50,000-$60,000 in sales tax revenue in a year. And now you're getting millions. So, am I answering your question? So
What are are there any negatives to go into a B?
I don't think so.
I would say no, we haven't found let me put it this way, the world has changed. The original type A and type B boards, and I'll ask Tim to back me up on this, their changes in the Texas legislature over the years have made it fairly apparent is that we should have had a B from the
All
get-go.
it does is expand your ability to do projects.
Yeah.
So the A is very limited, again, it's like primary jobs, you're essentially looking at manufacturing, it has to be, create a certain amount of employment in, with a B, and especially with like the sales tax thing, if this doesn't happen and we get dwindled down to nothing, well, maybe we can build a park, I don't know. We couldn't do that today, so the B can just do so many more things. So there's no negative.
I guess I just didn't understand why we weren't, or why everybody would already do that.
It's historical perspective. There are still lots of type A corporations, especially for general law cities.
Yeah.
You gotta realize, we're not a home rule city. So the state of Texas has basically put a lot of constraints on our ability to do the things that we would wanna do just because we're a type A general law city, and we tried to step way beyond our boundaries by going out and grabbing the 2% sales tax, okay, which we did by doing 1% for the city, 0.5% doing property tax reduction, 0.25% to the type A, and 0.25% to the B. Early on, were the type A's and type B's very functional, the answer was, no, they didn't have any money.
Yeah.
You are educating me, I'm just catching up.
Yeah, and I can share this memo, with council, but it breaks down what can a type A do, what can a type B do, and what would be the process for converting to a type B.
That'd be great.
But, I
did my quick Google. But
yeah,
other than
to
that-
Larry's point, I think big cities will have a type A and a type B. I think for smaller cities, it's more common just to have the type B as opposed to the type A, because they are more flexible.
And I think if we were a lot smarter back in the early 2000s, we probably would have kept the type B, although at that time it was limited a little bit more than it is today as far as economic growth, and we were trying to get more than $60,000 a year in sales tax revenue, so we decided in our brainiac mode that the type A made more sense. Okay, we beat this one sufficiently to death, so.
So we are open to verbiage on,
Okay, so Tyler will provide you with that one, and then your decision will be,
We'll put it on the agenda.
put an agenda for approval to go to the vote, okay?
But I don't think any of us are.
Okay,
It just needs to be, council will have to adopt an ordinance 78 days prior to the November election, so we got time.
okay, thank you. All right, second item we were going to is the, staffing and board composition. So we still have an executive director vacancy in over a year. We understand that there are some administrative changes on the city side. I know that we wanted to talk about sharing, a resource,
is there a need for that position? Executive director, is there a need?
Yeah, there's a need, but there's not a full-time need, and I think we did that in our workshop during the summer, okay? So there's a question that would come up is it, would it be, I guess in the interim, would it be better for us to devise our own part-time executive director, okay? That if we went out to whatever the, Economic Development Corporation, pool of retired people, because we did that once before. Our original type A, our EDC board executive director was a part-time, and he did part-time work for 4 or 5 different groups, but we need somebody who can deal with the answering of the questions and making sure that the documents are done. I mean, Tim's probably got as much knowledge as anybody about that one, but we need to get somebody physically in place, not necessarily full-time, at least allowing you to tell us we're okay to go auction out, at least for a temp or somebody else, just to start getting us back on the map, because.
But it's my opinion, you need it full-time. That is my opinion. And I say that because what do you want the city to do for the next 2 years? Who's recruiting? I mean, I know you've got, Yvonne is dealing with the permitting and planning, and, but who's recruiting and who's out, negotiating deals and who's doing that? Today, I would assume we're just waiting on the, Yvonne, you can answer, because I don't know how it's working, but you're waiting on them to come in, right? And then you work it, but who's actually out
There's nobody
listening to the council and saying, here's the direction we wanna go find this, that they can go first. And I also feel like it's common today that the city hires and then we share costs. That's a common practice. There's no reason for us to work against or compete with each other. So there will be a hire from the city side with shared costs for the stuff that we need to do. Plus, that director is gonna be working with your staff every day. They know what the needs are, and they can come to us and say, hey, we need a water line, we need whatever it is, but we don't have that information. I don't know what's happening internally, right? So we need somebody that's coming to us, saying, this is what we need to do to work these projects. So that's my opinion of it. I think it's a very valuable position, and I think Gerald is sitting in a position to do a lot of growing. I think it's coming, whether we want it or whether we don't. And so, the better we can do to get ahead of it, I think the better we are in looking at it from a long-term standpoint.
Okay, so we just need to post a position open for the executive director position?
Well, I think the first one, what you did not get accomplished is getting the job description completed.
Okay.
That was with the agreement in the last workshop that we had, and it was supposed to be when you were ready to go, get some inputs from the, Economic Development Board, okay, as to what our portion of that person should be doing, and depending upon Tim to bring that up. And then the city would define what would be the city's portion of that. As Tim brought up, are they gonna be full-blown engineer, are they just gonna be a project manager? It doesn't make any difference to us which one it was, but I think our intent is that if we could get somebody hired by Monday, that would be pretty good.
We do have a draft of one that we can work from, but right now it's too much in there to ask somebody to do, and so we just need to, somebody needs to go through it and really determine what is it that we need this director to do. And then that needs to be posted as the job description, but we do have a working document that someone can work off of.
Good. So,
Well, not having the city manager has an impact on hiring. We're just switching all to the city manager.
And that's the kind of the problem we're going with.
I think
You know,
this
we're
is-
already 13 months down without one, now
Put this on your radar. I think you got other things to fix right now.
But, I mean, if, in the short term, if you get a temporary hire, get you on moving, I mean, quite honestly, it's not fair to ask volunteers to be doing a paid position. You know, just like, I don't have a city. So, I mean, I'd be okay with that for temporary until we can get a city manager in and then go through a proper hiring process. I mean, I'm tired of sitting still, not doing anything.
Yeah. And I think that's our part of it, is that we need some professionalism that's in there, okay? Whether we just, if you're okay with us doing something internally, knowing that it's going to be a stopgap measure until we come up with whatever this.
What would we have them do? So this is my question. Like, who's running the city? Who's the leader over here? Well, then,
Factor.
we'll get on you, Master. But I mean, if we hired a temporary person, what are they gonna do? Are we instructing them to do what?
I mean, initially, I think it just kind of, first tax meeting is learn a lot about the city, where we have infrastructure, where can we build right now, where do we want to build 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. I mean, I think the learning curve is pretty pretty steep there. That's why I assume, hire somebody to just come in and start working with staff to, locate areas where businesses could come in. And then go and,
Temporary.
Well, my part of it was is that.
I mean, maybe the temporary is just.
Well, mine is just administrative, because I'm now answering all the questions that are coming in to the EDC. I'm the one that has to put out, answer the polls, answer the questionnaires. I'm the one that gets all of the input from somebody going, can you find us some places where we can build a property on? I'm going, I would love to do that, but I'm not really the one that has access to any of the resources within the city, okay? Up until very recently, I wasn't allowed into any place other than the foyer, so it was difficult for me to ask the proper questions as to, what do we have out there? So I'm not saying, I think in my case with this going, in the interim until we get it out there, can somebody at least do phone calls back? Now, I'm not saying it's a halftime 20 hours, it may be 5 hours 1 week, it may be 10, but I would like Tim to be able to kind of, or Tony to call into somebody and leave a message going, by the way, when you show up, can you find out this piece of information, or at least call these people back? Because that's one of the worst ones for me, is that I get these people that want something to happen, and, we're not even getting into the mode where we call them back. We haven't even got a method. I haven't got access to the website, so I can't even get people querying the website wanting to get some information back. I can't even do that.
Kudos to Diane. Diane, I know we call you and ask you questions, so thank you for that. You are a superwoman.
Yeah, Diane and Christie have been kind of our go-to.
Are you thinking an interim, before an official city manager is hired? Yeah. Do you have a timeline? Maybe we wait until that interim is there and then look for that, director?
I mean, it kind of depends on the exact description that y'all would go out and contract somebody for. It's 5 or 10 hours, or is it 30 hours?
Because if you're looking at an interim, to your point, then that way, it's pretty quick, right? That turnaround, if that interim, and then we really turn around immediately, create that job description and get it posted. We can make all this happen pretty quickly, knowing that there's an interim.
Because the hours.
And I thought I had a director 7 months ago, at our last workshop.
Yeah.
I feel bad.
That didn't happen. There were efforts to try and get it to happen. It didn't. So, yes, again, interim, I would like to say that they would hire y'all an executive director pretty quick, but I can't guarantee anything.
But can you set it as a high priority?
It is a high priority.
Okay. Because our last workshop, we were pretty agreeable to the fact that it might be 5 hours 1 week, it might be 30 hours the next week, and then it might be 2 hours the week. We really aren't concerned with the equitable amount of hours that we're spending each time. We just need a certain amount of tasking done, and a person that can be contacted for the tasking that we should have done.
I just don't want it to conflict with us hiring somebody on the city side permanently, and then whatever contract that y'all come up with this individual.
Well, and I think that's why the joint job description was there. As long as we got the critical job functionality within the job description, then we were going, and I think Tim makes a good point. They need to come in and ask part of the development staff or whomever is in here, where have you got roads going in? Where have you got a water line going in? I've got somebody that really wants to buy, 20 acres of land and build, whatever on it, but they're out in this part of the city, and we don't, how many years are you gonna be before you get there? So I just have to give them answers, and I can't do that, so. Okay. All right, so we're pretty much in agreement. I guess then we're accepting we're gonna wait.
Correct. Well, what I hear is there's an urgency that you're gonna get an interim in, and once that happens, then the high priority is to get an executive director that's gonna serve both in the city role and for the EDC. And that, once that's hired, which we're thinking is a pretty good turnaround, then we're good.
Yeah.
Okay?
I'm not opposed to y'all hiring somebody part-time, because I would like y'all to be involved in that hiring process, or 1 or 2 members.
Yes.
But what if you go out for candidates and you don't really like any of them we get, and we have to go out again? And then
Sure.
it goes out for another 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, but at least the process is moving along. The
Y'all are
process
good with that to wait,
could be
then it could
kinks,
be
but-
3, 4, 5 months.
Sure.
y'all agree with that?
Well, good, like I said,
Well,
1, 2, or 3 months.
Yeah.
And I would too, but I'm like, I can't.
Sure, we don't know the
Well,
quality of the
and-
candidates.
and as
and-
long as
How long
you-
it takes to find it
yeah.
out, they may.
As long as you're okay, if something exceptional shows up, you know, and we decide we need to go out and find somebody temporary just to get some work done, you know, you're not gonna have a connection fit with that, because we're not negating the fact is that we need to have a joint job description hired by the city that we share that's out there. But, I just don't wanna get too much further behind than where we are today. And it may turn out to be just an administrative person. It might.
Hold on just a minute. What I'm gonna try not to do is, even though we may take 2, 3, 4, 5 months to find this position, but there's an opportunity for us, because the people that's involved in this, inside this room, here, that we can work, our engineer firm is the same between the city and us, or in EDC and where I work on the day job. One thing that I personally do, I look at open space on acreage and land, especially on commercial, up and down east side and west side. I look at what size acreage it is, and there's a magical number that on how much water, how much sewer that has, what you can actually build commercial retail. That's easy to identify, and believe it or not, a lot of that stuff is already being done behind the scene on the city's behalf and on some other behalfs and everything. And there's some things that we could actually do. We have a contract with Retail Coach. There's no reason why we, EDC, cannot go out and create this map and have the assurance that the city will, I'm gonna use the word support us, and giving this map and giving a direction from the mayor and the council that, hey, we're looking at so much, restaurants and different types of businesses. And those things can be identified really, really quick. It's not the end to everything, but, I don't wanna go 5 months out and there's nothing happening, and we just missed out on 5 different commercials that came through here, they didn't realize, hey, was anybody here, and they kept on going. There's some very small amount of work that we can do right now that's already being done behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And we can make a phone call, Retail Coach, and as long as y'all's blessing is it, because I know we're equal partners here, and we can say, look, this is what I have over 150 acres of up and down east, I-35 east and west, that we can, because we got 5 bridges here. There's a lot of stuff that's fixing to happen, and we'll get more discussion on some other things, but 3 months is 3 months, and for my personal thing, if I'm not negotiating, making a deal, or in conversation every single day, I'm not doing my job in the position I'm in right now. And so 3 months, we can lose a lot of momentum in this town. And like I said, I don't want to overstep anything, but there are some relationships that, like Vaughn and I have had with KPA that we're looking at the growth. CIP projects is one of the biggest things. That's the first thing they're going to ask for. So what is your future and everything? Well, this is our future. But guess what? How many empty lots there is? I get everything she, I don't speak for it, but I'll play like I am. Everything she gets, I get too. Because they don't know who has water. Is it Gerald Swetner, or is it City Gerald or Sonterra? So we all get the same phone call until we direct it. And so since we're all working together here, there's some stuff that we can actually create really quick, identify a person who can do this part-time, and basically tell them, this is what we want to work with Retail Coach and go after them. This is what y'all want. The city wants to see this commercial. And push it. Instead of waiting for 5 months, then we gotta go through a 3-month learning curve, and now we're sitting at a year, and how many businesses did we lose? The study that's been done, and I'll make this real quick, is that there's anywhere from 22 to 40 different feasibility studies that's been done in the last 2 years amongst the city and myself, that we've either closed on a few, missed on an opportunity, or whatever. And that's not a good percentage at all. We should be 80%. We should be closing these deals, because we can. The relationship is great. We have a great relationship.
Yeah,
with-
can I
Please,
piggyback on
please.
what Joe was saying, what Joe was saying, if you guys wanna use an EDC, so I've been attending the EDP, the local EDP meetings, over the last year in the absence of an EDC person. There has to be infrastructure in place. If you're gonna pursue these businesses, if you're gonna try and attract them, you guys have to have the infrastructure in place. So I would really, really emphasize prioritizing that infrastructure, the water, the sewer, so that you can say, hey, we already have this here. We can get you on the ground, we can get you platted, permitted within 12 months, 18 months, because a lot of these places, that's what they're looking for. They're not looking for, oh, it's gonna take us 5 years to get this water line or sewer line out to you. I'm gonna be honest though, that was kind of a unicorn. You guys, yeah, that really lucked out. They kind of fell in your lap and said that, hey, we'll bring the water to us. That's not really how it typically works, you know?
Okay. So we kind of jumped to 3.3, so I'm gonna go back on 3.2, that's okay, that's a strategic direction. So the other one is our board member vacancy, which has been since June of last year. We would like to have a full board.
And I will say, we took that off our last agenda for last night. We were here till 11 o'clock at night. I felt like having board interviews and doing that, we've been here till midnight or later. So, my plan was to call a special call meeting here the next week or two, to address the P&Z board vacancies and EDC board vacancies. So
Okay.
get those filled.
I just wanted to put it out, you know, I've been going almost 10 months without a full complement of board members, let alone
And who was it that told me that we have to talk to these candidates and open?
No, EDC, you can do an executive session.
Oh, you can.
EDC you can, P&Z you cannot, because EDC kind of is its own board, they handle.
EDC you can,
EDC, yes ma'am,
P and Z
you
you
cannot.
you can't what, interview them.
privately, you have to be open.
Yes ma'am.
That's what
So EDC,
Never seen that, ever.
For P and Z,
None, period. Hutto City Council has a committee of 3, or less than a quorum. They interview them privately, and then they come back to the full council and present who they think are good candidates. That's how it's done. The people, I know I'm not gonna stand up here and interview from the board. I'm not gonna do it.
I mean, can we not interview P&Z and?
I don't know about that. I've never seen it.
Do you know that or not?
I've never seen it done in open, like you're talking about.
Well, so what
unless
are you
there's-
talking about, Yvonne?
that's what city attorney advised to us. So when I looked at previous agendas and saw that board and commission interviews had been done in private, I asked her to clarify because that was not a procedure I was familiar with.
Okay.
Okay, so when I asked her, she said, no, EDC you can do in private session, but P&Z, any others that don't handle money, do not control funds, stuff like that, you have to do out in open. So the city I previously worked in, the city council did not, staff would meet with them and then give an ordered list to city council. But city council would not interview.
So it's an ordinance that we've already passed that it's done that way, or
I
it's a
don't know if
law?
it's an ordinance that you guys.
That's
do.
what I was gonna say, I would have to look at your ordinances,
I
so
think that's
unless
just-
there's an ordinance to the contrary.
I think that's just historically how you guys have been operating. I don't think it's in writing anywhere that this is how you do it.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so we got that one. So 3.3 was strictly, asking you for some direction that goes out there. I'll kind of go with the bond. I had asked back in May, from our representative to get a copy of the CIP. Asked the mayor for one. What I got was a series of pages that were trying to represent impact fees, but not a CIP. So I know in the old financial ordinance, and I'm assuming you passed the new one last night, the new thing, there's a part in there that says you will have a CIP. It constitutes all the different things. The current year's planned project, CIP project, will be part of the budget. The other 4 will give us the vision as to where is council and deciding you guys want to go, so that we can use that document to figure out who we need to talk to and what proposals we can come back to council with to say, we could build this portion of your project if that's what you wanted to do, okay? So, I'm putting my old ex-mayor hat on, so, you know, we used to have a map that sit there and said, here's the water that would go with the maps that you had from MRP. It was, the water maps that you would have from KP or whatever else. Here's the little numbers that go with them. Here's the U numbers. Here's the other numbers. They would be plotted on the CIP plan with about what year you were planning on funding it. Again, these are strictly plans. But that's the document that we would use to go to go, if we got somebody and they said, look, man, I'll go with Joe's comment, somebody wants to build over on 130 acres on the east side of I-35, we know we can get water in there, so we gotta take a look at it, we can take a look at the CIP and then could potentially come back to you and go, could you move project U21, okay, from 2029 to 2027, and we could help fund that for you and bring a new business online, okay?
So we need an updated one.
You need one, okay? I don't know that you've had one for a couple of years now. I haven't been able to find it, I don't know.
We have one.
I've only seen a water wastewater CIP plan, which is what you used to determine the impact fees last year. I have not seen a true CIP plan since I started here that has roadway, drainage,
Yeah.
water,
And
wastewater.
for those that are relatively new within them, Daniel's seen it before, because he used to, every May, he would have to sit there and listen to me pontificate, you know, for our, and it would be everything that was on the map, that was a project that was on there. It was dollarized, and we had to figure out, council had to figure out what year did we think we wanted to put all these pieces in place to grow both the wastewater side as well as the water side, as well as the general side, how many police cars we're gonna buy, whether we're gonna buy new buildings. I mean, anything that would qualify under your financial ordinance as a capital item had to be in there. So you had everything from a pickup truck to, a $25 million wastewater treatment plant went into that one. So that's kind of the document that we need, okay, because right now it's invisible to us. We've got the maps. In fact, we're gonna discuss a couple of options to go in there with your MRB presentation for your wastewater plan, and then the other one we've got for the water plan. But nowhere in there does it tell us what year are you gonna start trying to finance and build those portions that are in there. A lot of the items in there should have been done 2 or 3 years ago, okay? So we either need to get it upgraded, or we need, somehow, if you upgrade it, we will naturally fall in behind, okay? And be able to not bug you, and to be able to talk to potential customers of the city of Gerald, and to make recommendations to council to maneuver things, and or give you the potential that we could contribute to a part of that cost if you could move it up, okay? But we just don't have that data, okay? So I know I was a great believer in stealing good stuff. I stole our original CIP plan from Round Rock, so, they had a nice one. I mean, I like the way it was done. That's the one we used to present all the time, so you could break it off. Here's wastewater, fine, here's water, fine, it was, all the items that are in there, But they were all tied to the maps that you guys were looking at, that I think Ron was bringing up, where you're trying to do the impact fees on. Those are, nice colored graphic maps with all kinds of colored lines going, and, here's a wastewater collector line, here's a plant, here's a lift station, here's whatever you want.
Do you know who did y'all CIP plan?
I did.
You did, okay.
Oh, you wanna do our other one? Come on, Larry.
There is a format, okay? No, I mean, there is a format. It's fairly simple to follow.
Yeah.
Okay? Because it literally did just went down here. Now, part of it was developed because we used to have two workshops every May to go digging those. And we would go through every damn line item that was on there to determine which ones we wanted to build, okay? And how we wanted to do them, and in what sequence we wanted to do them to promote growth in the areas that we had. But, so you had to have two. You had to have the spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet would tell you what the project was, what the name was, what the costs were, how much of it you're gonna get from impact fees, how much are you gonna get from operational revenue, all of the other parts that were in there. But to do each one of them, you had to have the map there that said this one equated to this little square down here with the little peach colored line that project line, so.
And you find out they're typically American documents, they usually, some cities build like 20 years.
No,
They'll
you have
build it out,
to,
but it
you have to
moves.
do them like every 5 to 7
Yeah.
years.
Okay.
So your financial ordinance says you have to have a 5-year CIP, and the first year has to be what's in your budget. Okay? So that was why, keep going back there, that was why we always did it in May. That was the first thing we did in the budgeting session, because the rest of it was pretty simple. I mean, So, and it was a lot less expensive
I
too.
was gonna say, it was simple, 'cause we had no money, it was easy.
Well, we learned how to borrow, we learned how to,
Make one?
we learned how to save money. Yeah. We learned how to save money, so we would have money to spend on them, okay? But until you knew what you wanted to do, and that was, by the way, the reason we were open, so we could get anybody that was interested from the public could come in and go, what the hell are you guys trying to do? You know, from the council members, it was all, having a good understanding of why we're gonna go, because most of them at that point in time would turn out to be some type of GO, general obligation gas bond to support whatever that growth was at the time, so.
Joe, what was the name of that company, Retail what?
Coach, retail coach.
So your CIP has to be prepared, CIP and impact fee calculations has to be prepared by a qualified and licensed professional engineer.
So your financial ordinance tells you what you need to do.
Okay.
It basically tells you the things that you need to includes, you know, how much you're gonna get in grants, how much you're gonna do in bonding and loaning, you know, how much you're gonna get in revenue sources coming from operational requirements. So in your enterprise fund, you know, you earn money off of both your water and your wastewater, because you can determine what those cash flows are that are in there. Certainly the document basis is going to be from your engineering firm, because that's going to include your map and whatever the engineering estimated costs are going to be for those projects that you're doing out there. You don't get to sit around and just kind of go, oh, I think that wastewater treatment takes too much, so I'm only gonna put $10 million in. Okay. All right, so that would be a request to us, okay? You know, I understand where we were before, but we're kind of wanting to get out there and starting to do some stuff.
Yeah,
Okay, and so we've got a couple of projects we're gonna debate once we close the workshop. And that's gonna be our first one to go out there and do something. So we've got a proposal from one of our members. We're gonna discuss putting in some boards. They're not connected to anything yet, but it's our best guesstimates based on a lot of past history with the city as to where we would need to put boards, so that we can either connect water lines and or wastewater lines to get past this barrier over here called Interstate 35. Okay, so.
And if there's any other direction council wants to give us, just let us know. I mean, we serve your pleasures, so let us know what y'all want to see happen, and we'll try to make it happen.
Well, I'd like two things from this. I'd like to see the document of requirement of the job requirements that you've got working on. You can just send it to my email. And Joe, kind of just summarize your ideas that you mentioned here and what you suggest we get going on, you know, in the immediate while we're waiting on other stuff. Because your ideas sound really good. So I kind of want to know what's already going on in the background and how we can maybe find someone that can continue doing that, or just give me your ideas.
Yes, ma'am, I'll send it to you guys.
Perfect, thanks.
Add to.
Great.
Good, good. So is there anything you want to lay on us before we close out this workshop? Tammy, we sufficiently
Caught me up.
cut you up. You're like, what the hell did I get into?
No, I knew what I was talking about.
Yeah, I've heard that you do.
I think,
Mayor?
at least it's my opinion, that we all know where Walmart's coming in, but trying to get that area with water and wastewater to build out that whole side of the interstate, is a priority for the city. And we're working with Sonterra, trying to come up with an agreement, put in a line to supply that, but that might be years down the road. Cost-wise, we would probably have to upgrade a lift station and some lines to get full capacity to build it out. We've also talked about potentially boring under 35. I don't know if that's an option, but we would really need a wastewater treatment plant on that side. So
On the east side?
yeah,
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
substantial
We'll bring-
investments that I'm sure y'all can help out with, if it's gonna grow out that commercial area over there, so.
Lots of options. Lots of options. Well, we can certainly do that and start working on it. This is great. I want to thank you.
Yes, this was great, Larry, thank you.
Council, it's just, I feel much better about it. Tim? Yeah, okay.
You feeling good, Tim?
I'm good. I'm outie, so if I wasn't.
I was gonna say.
We know if he wasn't.
If he had a candy bonnet, okay,
Right.
we would know where to go.
Okay.
All right, okay.
Nice.
If there's nothing else that's out there, then I'm going to close this work. And I will open up